This is the ink that we're going to use. I like to put it in the palette. You can dip your brush in here. The problem with doing that is then the ink gets into the, this is called the ferrule of your brush. You have the brush, the brush part of your brush, and then the ferrule, which is the metal part. And the ink gets up in there, and then if you ever use this brush for like yellow gouache, it gets all in the yellow if you're trying to use it for white. So I try not to get that much ink up there, so I put the ink on the palette. The way I set up my workstation is because I'm right-handed, I put liquids over here. If I was drinking coffee, I'd put my coffee drink over here on the left, endeavoring not to drink. You don't want to drink your ink or paint with your coffee. So you want to have your coffee or iced tea over here and your painting stuff over here. And then I keep my water past my palette and my brushes, because what happens is you tend to pull toward the right because you're right-handed, so keep everything over there. So I'm going to do some things in watercolor paper and in Bristol. You notice the Bristol is pretty slick, and the watercolor has a little bit more bump to it. And I'm going to demonstrate just a couple things with that. You need some paper towels for this, which we've got lots of. I like to get my brush wet a little bit, even though I'm not going to use much water. I'm going to use two different brushes. This is a round brush, and the watercolor brushes are generally the ones you use with ink, and they are the brown ones as opposed to white ones, although that works. And with a round brush, you can do all kinds of great stuff with the paper. You can paint sideways and get all kinds of light strokes. But you can also, with round brush, you can get a really thick stroke, but then you can also get a pretty fine stroke with the round brush. What's great about the watercolor paper is you can hit the top of the paper and get some nice gray strokes like that, which is nice. And if you do the same thing on the Bristol board, yeah, it comes out a little bit different looking. It's harder to get those gray strokes, but it's a little cleaner. It's a neater line. You can usually get a thinner line, get a really thin line. And this is, I like to use pretty fat brushes even to get a thin line. I don't have any really thin brushes, although you can buy brushes with one hair on them. A flat brush, this just happens to be cut sideways. It's just a slightly different feel to it. You can do the similar things. You can get a really big stroke with the fat brush. Then you can also, what's nice about the fat brush is you can get, besides the thick stroke, you can get a really thin stroke with the fat brush. Almost as thin as this, not quite. Close. Same thing with the watercolor paper. A little different feel to it. You can start to get, as the brush, this is why it's called dry brush. As the brush dries out, you can get more of this technique of this dry brushing and get the grays on there, and you can see it'll just eventually get less gray and gray and grayer. And then if you're trying to do that without getting it dry, you can also use the side of the brush. You get really light grays with that. What I do is I usually have one cup. Well, I got two glasses. I have one to rinse out, and then I have one to sort of rinse it out even farther if I want to do that. We're going to do a drip. Got to have some drips. Let's see, I'm going to drip toward the camera, huh? You just got to load it up until it'll drip. Drip away. And just a little bit easier to do it, a drip on the Bristol board. And then we're going to practice doing a splatter. There's the right way and the wrong way to do the splatter. So, the wrong way to do the splatter is for me to hold the brush with the ink and hit it with this brush. If I do that, if I hit it with the brush, if I have the ink right here, if I'm hitting the brush with no ink onto this, the ink is going to go right in my face. Okay? But if you take the unloaded brush and the ink brush and then you just tap it, it will go generally where you want. We're all going to make a stencil. I had a little, there we go. Get my stencil making stuff out here. And you can make very complex stencils with Bristol board. I'm not going to make a real complex stencil. You can tape it down if you want. or not. I should get an apron when I do this. So the only way to get a hard line with the splatter is by making a stencil. So there's no way to get a hard line with that. So I've just made my stencil, and now I have my splatter stars.